This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And we are back for the Primetime Podcast right here on Most Valuable Podcast, your one-stop shop. I couldn't hear myself well, and I'm like, you know what? I think the headphones aren't loud enough, and that was the point. Or that was the case, I should say. Headphones weren't loud enough, so they are nice and loud now. We're ready to kind of talk. We got NFL Draft today. We're going to have Matthew on, one of our patrons, who's going to talk NBA Draft with us, and then we're closing the show. I feel like we haven't talked about this in forever, but we're actually going to talk about some college football today and not look at draft for our final segment. But before we get into everything that we're going to talk about, a little housekeeping here at the beginning. Number one, if you want to be like Matthew, be on a podcast, or you just want to support Most Valuable Podcast, check out patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. That link down below in the description. You can also grab an MVP t-shirt. That store link also down below in the description as well. MostValuablePodcast.com. NFL Draft fans, I came out with a 7-round mock draft. We are getting closer and closer to it. Let me know what you guys think about who I have your team taking. That link is also down below in the description. And last but not least, if you're on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, go give the Primetime Podcast a 5-star rating. But Brandon, talking about quarterbacks in the draft, talking about the NBA draft process, talking about Tennessee football to round out the show. But let's start the show with some NFL draft. Like I said, talking quarterbacks. And the big thing coming into Thursday, like I told Sean yesterday on our basically NFL draft special, I'll say 5 topics that Sean and I did yesterday, I told him that the thing I hate about this week is things will come out and you don't know if it's real or if it's just a smokescreen. Like the Buffalo Bills going, we're not going to trade for 2. Are you not going to trade for 2? Or are you just saying that so someone else does try to trade for 2 so that you can trade for something else and take a guy that you really like? Also, I was listening to The Herd today and Jay Glazer was on, and he was saying how the process works basically is teams will put their draft boards together Sunday, then yesterday and today they'll argue with each other who they like better, and basically they'll do that all the way until the draft starts on Thursday night of who they like better and kind of fight with themselves to who they should put at the top. But we know already someone's going number 1 quarterback. A quarterback could be going number 2, probably will be going number 3. What are you thinking coming into this draft about the quarterbacks and kind of about how many we could see go on the first night of the NFL draft?
Well, as we all know, everyone and anyone who's been covering and following all the coverage for probably what seems now the last 6 months to a full year of these quarterbacks and their progression and where they've been and where we expect them to be. There's a plethora of quarterbacks. I mean, this is every year it seems like there is a heavy something. You know, is it a heavy running back draft class? Is it a really good elite wide receiver draft class? Is it a really good quarterback heavy an elite draft class? Well, this year we've got a quarterback-heavy draft class.
We were even saying that last year. We're like, you don't need a guy here. You'll get him next year. We got 5 of them that can go for sure.
And I think, though, too, even after we looked last week, I mean, we talked about Saquon Barkley, and we have talked about him at the top, but I think we also had a pretty good discussion about some other guys that are underneath him, probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 guys that someone could say, hey, I'm going to take him. This is going to be quality running back. So you could even still say it that there are some other good quality running backs. I think at wide receiver, that's probably the lightest in terms of this year's draft class. But going back to the quarterbacks, when I look at it, I see 5 quarterbacks that I could see going in this first round. And those quarterbacks are Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, and Lamar Jackson. And I see all of them going. Honestly, the first 4, probably within the first 12 picks.
Maybe even the top 10.
Possibly. And Lamar Jackson, for some reason, unless they shake it up, which actually all the signs and people around the league are saying they will, the New England Patriots, I could see the New England Patriots, as I've said now for a while, not like, oh gosh, I'm right, I'm the only one who's ever said it, but I've believed that the New England Patriots would be a good fit with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson would be a good fit with them. Would it be different than what they've had in Tom Brady? Absolutely, it would be different. But would it be, I think, a fun new project for Bill Belichick? Yeah, it absolutely would be. But with the New England Patriots kind of, and I don't want to get too much into onside kick territory, but with the New England Patriots,
Go ahead. The onside kick, we don't have one until after the first round.
Well, a lot of people,
ahead.
with Tom Brady seemingly being iffy, supposedly on coming back, but then his agent saying, yes, he is going to play, and then Gronk being, a guy who's kind of iffy, and then someone asking him just the other day if he was going to be attending the off-season workouts, and he said, no, I've got some motorbiking to do or motorsport to do, whatever he said. And they're like, yeah, that doesn't usually fly too well with Bill Belichick. And they've also talked about, do the New England Patriots say, okay, Gronk, you come back. Okay, we're all good. Okay, Gronk, we're trading you and possibly something else to get even higher into the draft, to whether it's take Lamar Jackson with a big shock that high, or if it's to take somebody else, one of those other quarterbacks, because the New England Patriots, people can call them a lot of different words, but one is not dumb.
No.
They know exactly what they're doing.
And
They know exactly who they
up.
want. They know exactly who they want. So I'm very intrigued by what they could do. I'm very intrigued on, who's going to be this year's Bears. Now, I know the Bears only traded up one spot, but they traded a whole lot to go get Mitchell Trubisky last year.
Right now it's the Jets, but how much they gave up already just to move from 6 to 3 to get their guy, because they're going to go quarterback.
Yeah. I think that, this is going to be a very, very fun and exciting first round. But I do think, and I would be shocked if not every single one of those quarterbacks, those 5 that I named, don't go.
We're going to play a game. And the reason why we're going to play this game is because you mentioned Lamar Jackson. And as this topic is coming out, the reason why we're doing this is we did this on the onside kick, thanks to Sean for the graphic you're going to see and the stats. If you check your email, Brandon, I actually emailed it to you so you can look at it while I kind of read these off and you don't have to remember all the numbers. So we were talking about Lamar Jackson on the onside kick, and Sean put up this graphic. There's 4 players. I am going to read them off for everyone.
I voted on this.
Did you?
I did.
Great, because I want to know. I'm going to ask you the same questions that Sean asked me, and then I will basically reveal who they are, and you're going to be pretty shocked with this.
I'm sure I will be.
I'm going to put the graphic up for you guys on YouTube, but for you guys listening on podcast services around the world, player 1 has and these are all junior year stats of college. So player 1 had 298 attempts in that season, a completion percentage of 64.4, a touchdown to INT of 30 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, 673 rushing yards. Player 2, 396 attempts. He had 61.6 was his completion percentage, 27 touchdowns, 11 INTs, 986 rushing yards. Player 3, 430 attempts, 59.1 completion percentage, 27 touchdowns, 10 INTs, 1,600 yards. He had 1,601 was his exact total. And then player 4, 527 attempts, 58.4 completion percentage, 28 touchdowns to 14 INTs, 435 rushing yards. The first question I'm going to ask you, Brandon, is what Sean asked me. Rank them from number 1 being the guy you would like out of these 4, that's the guy I'm picking, all the way through where 1's the best, 4's the lowest. How would you rank them in what order?
Well, when I voted on Twitter for this, I voted fairly quickly, overwhelmingly. I voted with player 1.
Okay. I picked player 1 also.
And I did that because I like the completion percentage. I like the touchdown to interception ratio. The attempts, though, I look at that and I think, okay, you're not throwing the ball all that much when you compare it to everybody else. But is it because you're not having to force it? you have a good running game,
What
all that kind of
system
stuff.
are you in?
Exactly. So now I'm thinking about all these things. So I'd either go player 1 or player 2 at number 1.
Okay, so player 1 at 1, player 2 at 2.
To be honest with you, I'm going to go player 1 as my first, player 2 as my second, player 3 is my third, player 4 is my fourth.
Okay. I am going to reveal them to you. The first one I'm going to start with is your last guy, player 4.
Okay.
There's 3 of these guys are in the NFL now. One of them is in the draft this year. This guy is in the NFL now. Who do you think it is?
Player 4?
Yes. He played for, I'll give you a hint. He plays in the NFC West. Russell Wilson.
Okay.
Russell Wilson is player 4.
That's surprising to me, though, with only 435 rushing yards.
His junior year, though. He also played at 2 schools. He played at Wisconsin and NC State. Player 3 is in the draft this year. Who do you think it is? He's in the draft this year. This one was easy. I picked this one out like that. Out of all the quarterbacks, who's got the most rushing yards? Lamar Jackson. So player 3 is Lamar Jackson. Player 4 is player 2 is in the NFL, plays in the NFC East.
I'm trying to think of a Dak Prescott.
It is Dak Prescott. And then player 1, the guy that you picked, the guy that I picked, same reasoning too. I was like, the system, he probably didn't throw that much. I like the high completion percentage. I love the touchdown to interception ratio. He's playing baseball. He's a baseball player right now. Who is that? Played for the Denver Broncos, won 1 playoff game.
Tim Tebow?
Tim Tebow. That is Tim Tebow's stats from his junior year of college. I found this very interesting when Sean revealed it to me, is that it's like, I picked Tim Tebow because of the stats, but would he be the quarterback that I would want? Looking at hindsight, probably not. But also with him, it was a whole situation of Denver basically ruined him too and didn't teach him how to throw the football. The thing about this was like Lamar Jackson, of what is he going to be at the NFL level. And the thing I love about him is that he comes from a pro-style offense. Pro-style offense in college, plays with a pro-style coach. Bobby Petrino is a pro-style guy. For me, I think that these quarterbacks, I'm talking about the ones in this draft now, not from our little experiment. I think if I had to guess of how they're going to fall, Darnold and Allen are going to be 1-2 interchangeably. One's going to go 1, the other one will go 2. Then I think Baker Mayfield will be the 3rd quarterback off the board. Then it becomes tricky to me. The only way I see Josh Rosen and Lamar Jackson, whoever goes 4, a team's going to trade up to get them. So for me, is if a team trades up to get him, it'll be Josh Rosen who goes first. Otherwise, I could see Lamar Jackson going first. But I'll say Rosen goes 4, Lamar Jackson goes 5, and then my question for who finishes out the first round is Mason Rudolph. He's the question mark, because does a Saints team at the end of the first round, Sean Payton was on the Dan Patrick Show this week, said last year they were going to take Patrick Mahomes, didn't get to because the Chiefs took him. Are the Saints is a different team like the Chargers, who Mark and I 2 weeks ago kind of discussed how they're thinking about taking a quarterback in the second round. They like Mason Rudolph. However, they're a team that has the capital that they can say, screw it, we're going to trade up with one of those teams later on to just grab Mason Rudolph and get our guy. That's the question for me when it comes to how many quarterbacks get drafted. 5 are getting drafted for me in the first round for sure. That 6 is, will somebody, and I'll ask you, will somebody trade back into the first round to grab Mason Rudolph?
Well, someone who certainly wouldn't trade back into the first round would be the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. Like the Chiefs, I don't see the Chiefs trading back into the first round. Because they don't even have a first round pick. They don't need a quarterback because they've got their guy.
Yep.
I don't necessarily see them giving up anything to get back into the first round because they don't need a quarterback. They don't need a running back. They really don't need a wide receiver. I guess I don't know if there's anything first round worthy that they would do. So look, like specifically looking at a team like that, I don't see them, trying to bounce back into the first round. Now it's going to be interesting when we're going through the draft and what teams that are in the first round may be trading up to try and get higher to take a guy that you're like, oh, didn't know they were looking at them, or to try and see if they could. I don't want to say try and pull a fast one on any teams, but try and get them, give a team a great package for that team, and then slide in there and take the player, and then we're sitting here surprised, going, the New York Giants didn't take anybody there at number 2. They traded it away, and you're just kind of befuddled. But
Gettleman there, I think he's the owner. I apparently earlier this week, and yet again, could be a smokescreen. I don't know what they're thinking. He apparently said that there's no way he passes on Barkley at 2. So if the Browns don't go Barkley, he's basically saying Saquon Barkley's our pick at 2 to help out Eli Manning. Now, will that be true? We'll have to wait until Thursday to find out.
Yeah, we absolutely will. I think, again, I don't know if we necessarily will see anyone getting back into the first round who does not have that first round pick to try and take anybody here. But I could see some teams within that first round trying to jump over some other teams, make sure that, like, if they want someone so badly, jumping and making sure that they go and they get them. But of course, if you're trying to go into the top in the first 5 picks, you better be offering some package that's really, really good, either in terms of draft picks or in terms of player draft picks or just player or something like that. Like I mentioned earlier, like a Rob Gronkowski type of deal, where Rob Gronkowski alone could be enough for whatever team, could be enough to be sweet enough for that deal and get into the or higher in the first round.
Which I know someone's probably already said it in the comment section. Last thing we've heard with Gronkowski, him and his agent met today with Belichick, apparently to tell him, I'm playing this season, but anything could happen. Anything can happen with that team. Someone could decide, well, we're going to push this trade, and he can be traded. Nothing is a for sure thing when it comes to the NFL. The thing that I think about, there's 2 teams that I could see trading back into the first round for a quarterback specifically. Either the Denver Broncos or the Chargers. The only 2 I can think of. Patriots want to back up because they traded both of theirs. However, I don't see them trading into the first round to get it. They'll wait until the second or third if they don't get Lamar Jackson in the first, or they don't trade up in the first to get their guy, because that's a thing that they could do. Also, it's an option. That's the word I was looking for. Other than that, there's not many teams. Like the Dolphins could go quarterback, but unless like a Rosen falls to them at 11, I don't see them trading up. At that point, they'll just say, screw it, we'll stick with Tannehill and kind of figure out the successor problem after this year or in later rounds if they find the right guy. The thing that I'm thinking about and kind of like my situation is the 2 teams I mentioned, Broncos and Chargers. I only see the Broncos trading into the first round for that quarterback if they trade the number 5 pick. Sean and I talked about, should they trade that pick? Elway has said, you know what, we're open to trading the 5th pick, basically telling teams like Buffalo, hey, you can pick up that phone. We'll listen. We'll listen to that offer real good. If they trade that first round pick, I could see them either, if it's to a Buffalo, taking a Mason Rudolph at 22 or saying, hey, we didn't get both first. We only got the 12, but we got some back-end capital later in this draft. Let's use some of those picks that we just got to move back into the first round to get 2 first-rounders and get our quarterback. The only way I see the Chargers doing that is if they're sitting there going, all right, we like Mason Rudolph. The Broncos kept their pick, didn't go quarterback. They went with something else. Do we sit here and wait for tomorrow to see what the Broncos do? Or do we say, fuck it, let's trade some of our picks to a team like Minnesota who could trade back and go and grab our guy before the Broncos even have a chance tomorrow on Friday?
Well, a team like the Buffalo Bills, they're a team, they're in dire need of a quarterback.
AJ McCarron ain't nothing special.
Yeah, and we certainly know who's behind him.
5-pick Peterman.
That is his nickname, isn't it?
5PP. I don't even know. I just came up with it off the noggin.
I like that.
5PP.
I like that. Yeah, they're hurting. I mean, they're hurting worse than Denver's hurting, and Denver's hurting. So
they're in better shape. At least they got Case Keenum.
No, well,
after Case Keenum,
yes,
they got Paxton Lynch.
So my whole thing is that Denver would be the likely option of a team to try and trade with, a team to try and coax. Like, you're not going to coax the Cleveland Browns to give up a draft pick in the first round.
Yeah, no, they're set.
Cleveland is set. Not really, but they are. Because I don't think they're sold yet on who they're going to take at number one. Right now, I think it's down to it's down to Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, or Saquon Barkley. Christ, any one of them.
The thing I heard yesterday that Sean and I talked about was that it was between, like, Todd McShay had in his thing, he's hearing it's either they're 50-50 on Darnold and Allen. That's the two they're thinking about. Then today there's an article on ESPN. Well, Baker Mayfield could be the first pick. Like Jay Glazer in that interview I said on The Herd, when The Herd's like, will they really go Baker? He goes, they're probably talking about it. They probably don't know who the hell they want to take now.
And see, that's the thing.
They're trying to argue with each other about who they want, and they're gonna overanalyze. Like, it's kind of like overanalyze.
They're gonna overanalyze, and the Cleveland Browns more so are gonna overanalyze because they're gonna say, guys, let's really sit down, look at this. Who can we pick that won't get us fired within the year?
True. True. I mean, we don't want to get shutted.
We would like to keep our jobs for at least 5 seasons.
I mean, hey, Hugh Jackson, only 1 win in 2 years. I mean, I think his job's pretty safe. I think it's pretty safe if you haven't gotten fired at this point.
But at this point for Cleveland, I mean, more so than probably any other team, because not only do you have the first pick in the draft, you have the fourth pick in the draft. You have 2 premier picks within the top 5,
and they've got 5 in the first 2 rounds.
And you have got to be so strategic. You have got to do as much homework as you possibly can to make sure that those picks are the right ones.
Yep.
Which, as hard as that is to say, you've got to be able to do it.
Yeah, they've got 2 picks in the top 5, 5 picks in the top 64. That's a lot of picks to have. And the thing, before we move on into the thing I want to do to end this segment, I want to ask you, give me your prediction of, you don't have to tell me where they go, but tell me who you think, look into your crystal ball for Thursday, what order are these quarterbacks going to get drafted and how many will go? You can tell me who they go to, or you can just say, screw it, I'll just tell you what order they get drafted in.
Okay.
Just the quarterbacks.
So Josh Allen
will be the first quarterback.
Quarterback. He'll go to the Browns.
Okay.
Baker Mayfield will be the second quarterback. He'll go to the Jets.
Okay.
And then I think that we're going to see Sam Darnold as the third quarterback. He's going to go to the Bills.
Okay.
Who traded with the Broncos.
Okay.
To get him. That's third, right? Then the fourth quarterback.
Rosen or Lamar?
The fourth quarterback, I think Josh Rosen's going to go to the Dolphins.
Okay.
And then Lamar Jackson, fifth one, he's going to go to the Patriots.
Really? So I've got 2 questions for you before we close this and go on into kind of like the tail end to this first topic. Why would the Cardinals pass on Lamar Jackson? That's the big question I have, is because you've got between the Dolphins and the Patriots that Cardinal pick at 15. That's the one where, if that happened, I'd be like, whoa, that's a shocker.
Because if the other guys, if Allen through Darnold are already gone, I think the Cardinals would go for more like a Mason Rudolph than a Lamar Jackson.
Plus, they got Sam Bradford and the Ginger Giraffe, so they're fine. They got Mike Glenn and Sam Bradford. They got the NFC North trash. They don't need to get anything else.
So my whole thing is that with the Cardinals, I don't know if I could see like Lamar Jackson fitting their system. I feel like they need more of a Mason Rudolph type, whereas the New England Patriots, I think that they would be happy to have Lamar Jackson and be able to bring him in and use. I feel like at that point the Cardinals would be looking more for a guy who's not necessarily going to be like. I don't want to say that Lamar Jackson will be a run-first guy because that's not fair, but they want someone more like the Josh Allen or a Sam Darnold or something like that. And when they don't get him, they'll go for Mason Rudolph over Lamar Jackson.
So before I give mine, want to kick it off to you guys. Let us know who you guys think are going to go in the list of quarterbacks. Who goes first, second, third? How many first-round quarterbacks do you think will be taken? Let's move on, though, into our next segment, and a special segment like it is each and every month here on the Primetime Podcast, as we are joined by a patron, and got to give the little plug for if you guys want to be a patron on our podcast each month, go check out the $10 tier. Patreon.com/MostValuable is in the description. But I got to welcome in Matthew, one of our loyal patrons. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm good, guys. How are you guys doing?
We are doing great. Just talked about quarterbacks for the NFL draft. Now we're diving into a little bit of the NBA draft. And the topic that Matt brought us today was basically the NBA draft. Is the current process or the current rules, are they good for college players and for college teams? And a little bit for you guys, if you don't know the exact process, how it works for college players in the NBA draft is you can declare for the draft, and I believe if you do not sign an agent, you can go through the combine, you can go through the entire process, and then the deadline is June 11th at 5 p.m. Eastern. By that time, you have until you can say whether you want to come back to college. So anytime before that, you can say, you know what, it's not for me, I'm going to go back to college. However, I believe if you sign an agent, you're locked in and you're going to the NBA draft. So we're basically looking at that and whether it's good for players, good for teams. Matt, I'm going to let you start. You can talk. You can decide whether we look at players first, teams first. What do you think about this process? Is it good or bad for college players and teams?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot more good than there is bad. And the primary reason for that is, as you alluded to, you know, as an underclassman, I have the opportunity to not hire an agent, compete in front of these NBA scouts, get feedback directly from the people I'm trying to impress, and then, you know, decide whether that's the opportune time for me to leave and go get drafted, or alternatively, you know, set myself up better for the following year by taking their advice and taking it to heart and working on things. So I think for that reason, to the players anyway, it's a really good opportunity.
It's a good opportunity for the players, yes. I think it's nice for them to be able to go and, like you said, you know, they get a really good evaluation from, you know, scouts and teams and stuff like that on where they believe they're going to be, and probably the things that the reason why they're going to be there. You know, what kind of someone looks at them for. Here's your kind of your positives. Here's your negatives. Here's the things that we'd like to see improve from you. But I don't necessarily feel like it helps the college all that much, because you are now acting as though, okay, you guys have split. You've separated. You've declared for the draft.
You're no longer
and
coming back.
You're no longer coming back, supposedly. But then you go and you're like, I'd like my draft stock to be higher after you go through this whole process. The school thinks you're not coming back. You don't believe you're going to be coming back until you're going to be drafted 20. Like, I don't want to go 20. I want to go 12. I know I can go 12. Okay. I know I can go 12. I'll go 12 next year. I'll go back to school, and I'll get it done. Next season, we'll have a great season. I'll work really hard. I'll make sure that I shine, and I'll be going 12. I don't like that. I don't like that for the school side of things. Now you look at the NFL. You leave.
Bye.
You're gone. You're gone. And that's known. You're not going to be coming back. So a school can truly move on and go in a different direction, and that's how they can set up their recruiting and everything like that. They're recruiting to fill your spot. Not to say that in the time that you leave, now jumping back to the NBA, you leave, you go, and declare for the draft, And then within that time, it's not like they're going to just find your replacement right away. I get that. But they've already started the process. They've started the process before you even left to declare for the draft because you are in conversations that you most likely are going to be earlier in the season. So I think that becomes a little bit of a headache or hassle, or could become a bit of a headache or hassle for the team. It is a huge plus for the player. But again, I almost feel like it should be kind of one set rule or one set guideline across the different sports that this is how it's got to be. You can't just jump ship, find out, maybe next year's better, and then come back. Because if you can do it in one, why can't you do it in another? That would be my question.
Well, and the thing that I look at is, and this is kind of two things. First off is we've got an example of this, like Luke May, the junior from North Carolina. Today, it was reported he's declared for the draft. However, right after it says won't hire an agent. So basically, you can assume that Luke is going to go through everything. I'm going to predict it right now. He'll go through the entire process, probably not like where he's going to be drafted, and he'll be back at North Carolina next year. Just wants to go through the process, though, see where he is, like Matt said, playing for an NBA scouts. You never know if you're going to get a chance to wow someone just by playing in front of them. But the thing I also think about is all of these college teams, is it that big of a deal whether a guy like Luke May is on the fence about if he's going to go to the draft or come back because of this? Because most of the guys in this one-and-done era of basketball, and we'll get to that a little bit later because I think that's part of the problem, is are they really that worried? Because, like, look at Duke. They've got 3 or 4 of the top 5 guys coming in. It's like if some guy who played a minor role, and I know Luke May played a role in the tournament for them, if he comes back or not, it's not like it's going to, like, if Luke May leaves North Carolina, it's not like it's going to make or break their team. Plus, like, going over to Duke, they know, like, Marvin Bagley's not coming back. They know that Wendell Carter ain't coming back, that those guys are going to the draft. So, like, I look at it and I say, yeah, I don't like it because on the team side, there's a lot of uncertainty about whether or not this player is going to come back and if I need to find a replacement for him. But at the same time, I wonder if, does it really matter because the guys that you really want, you're targeting and recruiting even before you get to this process. What are you thinking about this, Matt?
I mean, as far as it relates to the teams, I see what you're saying. I mean, it's a little difficult then to know if a guy truly is kind of this, yeah, he probably could be drafted, but is it going to be high enough that he's going to go? So, I mean, I guess I'm going to point to Purdue, not that you guys want to hear it, but Carson Edwards. I do. Carson Edwards, so he kind of burst onto the scene in a big way, actually won the top shooting guard award in the nation, and would probably be, you know, an All-American, first-team All-American to start next year if he comes back. But the question is, will he? And if he doesn't, it's a huge blow to Purdue. He's kind of probably a guy, I don't know, you know, enough about the NBA, but he's not first round. There's questions about his size and decision-making still. But if one, you know, as I think one of you said, it only takes one team to tell you, hey, we'll draft you first round. You know, we're buying into what you bring. So that can be difficult, a guy like that. However, at the same time, I don't know that I mind it because if he does come back, he's been given all this feedback that's only, you know, hopefully going to improve his game if he's hearing it directly from the source. I mean, you'd like to think that these kids would listen to their own coaches, right? They're probably telling them the same thing. However, I think it maybe lends itself to a little more credence when they hear the NBA guys telling it to them too.
Well, and right now, just for a reference, I'm looking at tankathon.com because they do have a full 2-round mock draft. Vince Edwards, Purdue, is slotted 49th on their mock draft. So there's a total of 60 picks in the NBA draft. He's right now at 49 on their mock draft.
Well, sorry. I was talking to the other Edwards guy.
Oh, are you?
Carson Edwards.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's not on the mock draft. Only Vince Edwards. Only Vince Edwards is. So Carson Edwards ain't even on that mock draft. I just saw Edwards, and I was like, that's what I thought Matt was talking about. But, I mean, the thing with this, too, is, like, I just pulled up an ESPN article where, like, the title of it is, even, like, testing the waters, it's more complicated than it sounds. Because it's not just because I go through this process doesn't mean I'm going to wow a scout to where they're like, yeah, let's take him in the second round. And the thing that I think, just getting out, because I mentioned it before, the thing I think that could not put this to bed, but will change this, is if the NBA gets rid of the one and done rule. Because it's not like it's a college rule, it's an NBA rule. But if the NBA gets rid of the one and done rule, that will change this entire process, because then we're not making guys go to college for a year that don't want to. We're not making it to where these guys have to, like I said, sign with colleges, and it's going to change recruiting for the coaches. Brandon, I'll ask you, do you think the one and done rule really does affect this as much as I think it is, where if you get rid of the one and done rule, maybe then we don't need this process, and it could be, hey, if you come into the draft, you're in the draft, deal with it, kind of a thing.
Well, I think that's where we could definitely be going. And again, you know, with what we're talking about here tonight with this topic, the one and done guys aren't the guys we're talking about.
No,
you know,
it's the second rounders.
Yeah, really, for the most part, the 1 through 10, the 1 through 15, most likely are kind of locked up. But then if you look at like a Kyrie Thomas from Creighton, you know, junior, or if you look at a guy like even Gafford. Now Gafford's not going, as we're well told. You know, he's from Boise State, I believe. He's not going to the draft. He was thinking about it. He didn't end up going, but it's for those guys. You know, it's for those guys to be able to go test the water, see where they're going to possibly be at, and then if they like where they're at, they go. But if you get rid of the one and done, which is again your top for a lot of them, your top 10, your top 12, you could do away with kind of that this whole thing. You have to stay for 2 years, and then okay, now you can go. I think that we'd see a little bit less of this. You know, go test it out, come back. You did college. You did your college. You did your 2 years. You're done. Then you can go and you're gone. I think that we'd see a little bit more of a simpler, a more seamless type of process. And I'm not saying that we are. I'm not saying that we're, you know, DeAndre Ayton's not going, am I going to be 2? Yeah. I really wanted to be 1. You know, that's not happening. It's more for, like we said, and I mentioned, guys later on in the draft. But if you do away with the one and done, and you say, okay, that's not going to happen, but you say that they're going to have to be in school for at least 2 years, they're set there, I don't see us having to have as big of a discussion about this, because we already know what's going to be happening.
So what I have right now in front of me, and after I do this, I'm going to come right to you, Matt, so be ready for this. So I have the list of last year's early entries. So the guys that entered the NBA draft and then can pull their name out of it. Guys that I am looking at. So these are guys that were last year declared for the draft, but then we saw again this year in college basketball. You have guys like Raleigh Atkins. We saw him this year. You saw guys like Joel Berry. He was in college this year. Guys like Javon Carter. There's also Hamidou Diallo. There's guys like Vince Edwards, because he's in the draft this year. You've got guys like, going down, Isaac Haas. We've got Justin Jackson from Maryland, although he didn't play this year because he got injured. But that right there is like 6 guys, and I'm not even halfway through the list of guys that even declared last year. Mikhailuk from Kansas was on this list. That's another one that we saw this year. Those are guys where it's like, all right, they declared last year, they went through this process, but we still saw them this year. Mo Wagner, who declared this year, he declared last year, did the same thing, exited early, and we saw him this year in college basketball. So, I mean, is it really benefiting, I'll ask you, Matt, is it really benefiting anyone in the end that the one-and-doners are declaring and going? Is it truly benefiting these players? Like, I'll say Mo Wagner, declared last year, came back, now he declared again. Is he going to just come back again? Like, is this truly, in the end, like, oh, it's good for the players, but is it truly benefiting anyone in the end, in your mind?
I think it is situational. I mean, I think if I saw it correctly, I think Wagner did actually hire an agent this time, so I think he is. But I think his case, yes, it did help because look, he was the star of the team this year, right? He kind of got all the attention associated with him in that championship run. He was the big force, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas last year he was kind of lost a little bit in the why can't I think of their point guard?
You're talking about last year?
Yeah, Michigan's point guard. He was really Walton.
Yeah.
Walton
I was like, it wasn't Abdul Rahman because Abdul Rahman was back this year.
Walton and then Wilson, they were kind of a bunch of studs on that team, and he kind of got lost in it, whereas this year he got to be the standout. So I think a guy like him, it did help. A guy like Isaac Hosto, I don't know. I mean, I think part of that might just be that there's so many questions about him no matter what and where he fits in the NBA that I don't know that it does benefit him. I guess one thing I wanted to throw into this real quick is, will this system get broken by guys that have no business declaring? And I bring this up because this actually happened. There's no way in hell you guys have heard of No Gel Eastern.
No, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. He's a Purdue player that played about 10 minutes a game and was the backup point guard. And believe it or not, he declared for the draft last week or so. Okay. So everyone and their mother knows that there's no way he's going to be drafted. However, the more I thought about it, I'm like, what does he have to lose right now, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, he might not get a workout. He might not get that much attention. But at the very least, he's going to learn maybe a few things that he otherwise wouldn't have known. And there's legitimately no bad that comes from him. But I wonder if that starts to become a trend where these guys that have no business declare. At some point, does the system break and people are like, okay, we're like you said, we're getting rid of this. You're declaring without an agent. Either you are or you aren't, and you're done.
Well, I think that's a great point to bring up because I feel like that's, like Ricky had mentioned earlier, most likely your coaches are already telling you some of these things, or you would have liked to have thought that they would be listening to their coaches on that. But, is he going because he wants the NBA, scout perspective of, okay, how can I be better? How can I not be the backup? How can I become the starter? And what is it that I'm going to have to do? Work with me, help work with me. But really, how much can they do outside of saying, okay, this is what we see from you? I mean, they can't be in his everyday, skills and drills and stuff like that. They can't do that. So what does he think he's going to find there that he truly has not found with his coaches or other? I guess I want to say, team officials and stuff like that. That would be my biggest question. Like, you can't. It's not like they're going to be going through every drill with you and saying, okay, this is how you're going to be the starter. That's not going to happen.
This is what I think, and this is kind of a negative view of it. In this situation, me looking in, I would assume you're not going to get drafted. You know that whatever the scouts tell you isn't really going to help you get into the draft. You're just going to be in the draft process just to say I went through the NBA draft process. Because if it was me, like if I was on a college team and I could do it, why the hell not? Why not go through the NBA draft process just to say, hey, I was an NBA draftee. I didn't declare for the draft DM because it just wasn't right for me. Like, you could pull that card. But really, it sounds like to me in this case, it's just I just want to see what the process is like just to say, hey, I declared for the NBA draft and I went through that kind of a process. The thing that I think breaks all of this, where Matthew brings up the players that have no reason being there, is back to the one and done rule. Because Jalen Rose, when I was watching Get Up, he was saying a good point. And really football is the only one I think doesn't associate to this, because there is no way in my mind I would ever want a high school player going directly into the NFL. You'd die. You'd get killed, basically, with how violent that sport is and with how much your body matures in 3 years after high school. So that's the only sport where I'm like, I don't want to see this. But every other sport, hockey, which I know, Brandon, you don't like, but hockey, baseball, all of these, even golf, it's, do you have to go to college for 3 years? No. Look at baseball. You can go out of high school. So once you hit 18, you can declare for the draft. They have a similar system of, after you get drafted, if I don't like my thing, I can go to college, and then I have to stay the 2 or 3 years it is for the MLB. But I still get that 18 years old, I can come in and go through the draft process at 18 and then have this kind of choice that the NBA is doing. Golf, you can start even, there's amateurs and stuff that start before 18 in some of the pro-ams. Whereas hockey, it's also 18. If you're good enough, I think it was Patrick Kane was 18 when he was drafted by the Blackhawks. So it's like, why is basketball the only sport? Because I'm pushing football out of the way. Because in my mind, maybe you guys disagree with this, I don't want that to ever be a high school to NFL type of thing. But like with basketball, I think if we get rid of the one and done, we go more towards that. Once you're 18, you can go to the NBA draft, or once you graduate high school, you can go to the NBA draft. That it will get rid of this, and it'll obviously get rid of the one and dones because they won't be there. But I think it also goes, all right, we don't need to have this process anymore because we don't have one and dones, and we're just a normal NBA draft kind of process. What are you thinking when I say that? And what's your reaction to it? We'll go to Matt first.
Yeah, I guess the more we talk about it, I think that's probably going to be the way to go eventually. Just seems like the right path. I think, like we said, I don't think it's happened yet, but I think maybe the current system is setting itself up for failure, or not failure, but it's going to inconvenience someone. If it isn't already. So yeah, I think you're probably right in terms of where we might head in the future.
Well, and I just think, like you mentioned, the player from Purdue that only did 10 minutes. You're basically wasting the scout's time then, because it's a guy who you know is not going to get drafted. Like, yeah, it's one of those things where you want to be a good person, and it's like, oh, I want to help everyone who's there. But at the same time, it's like, dude, you know you're not going to be drafted. Why are you wasting my time? Why the hell are you wasting my time? But we'll go to Brandon first because we just went from Matt. Final thoughts on this. We'll go Brandon, then we'll go Matt, and then we'll close this thing up. Brandon, what's your final thoughts on this whole topic?
Well, I think I have thought for a while with NBA's one and done rule that it needs to go away, and I think that it would be better for the college athletes, the teams in general. I feel like it would create a better system than what it is right now. I think that it would be, I feel like it would feel more comprehensive. I feel like the players would get more out of it. Again, I understand that there's some they want to go for 1 year. They don't do school. I get it. A lot of times they literally went to that school with no intention of school. But you have to, I feel like even if that's not your intention, and your intention is just basketball, you still are going to grow and get better than on that team. And you still have that extra year. And no one's getting a leg up on you if this is how it is across the board. And I feel like if they fix that, then it will trickle down to be able to, I don't want to say fix this, but make this a little bit better. And I think close some of the, I don't want to say it's a loophole, but on something like what you brought up, Matt, Joe Schmo, who's on, any random team that doesn't get a lot of playing time and is, trying to declare for the draft. No, you can't do that, buddy. I mean, we like you and all, but no. So I think that it's going to have to start before this process is dealt with. I think we're going to have to look at the one and done rule, deal with that, and then we'll deal with this.
Matt, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I mean, I think, like you guys have said, you can kind of trace it, at least some links to the one and done, and that'll help in a big way, kind of with how the current system works, and it just comes to a refinement at that point. However, I will say I don't necessarily blame players for taking advantage of it right now while they can. I mean, like I said, I don't know that there's a whole lot to lose, so why wouldn't you? So
you're right. I mean, I just want to point, you can't blame the players. I mean, you can't blame the players at all. If it's open to you, you should be able to go and do it. But I guess I'll go more to Ricky's point of you're more wasting the time on the other side if you're one who's definitely, like in the situation that you brought up, Matt, that we all know, everyone, and they know that that's not going to happen. But for someone like, let's say, a Luke May in that other situation, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he cracks the spot where he's going to find himself to be drafted at some point. I think that I agree with you, Matt. You cannot blame the players for taking advantage of this while they are able to do so, because hopefully the ones who don't end up going will come back, will get better, and will find themselves in a better spot next year.
Well, just my final thought is I'm thinking it's kind of a catch-22, where it's like the scout could be sitting there going, why are you wasting my time? But in that situation, like the guy who only averaged 10 minutes per game, he could sit there on the other side and go, if you didn't want me to be here, why are you having it open to me? So it's like you can't blame him for wanting to do it, but you can't blame the scouts for saying, come on, kid, you know you're not going to be drafted. Why are you really doing this? But this is where I want to turn on to you guys watching and listening. What do you guys think of the current NBA draft process about declaring early, then they can go ahead and pull out after the lottery on June 11th? They can pull out. That's the date that they have to do. Let us know what you think about that. Let us know what you think about the one and done in the entire NBA process. Want to thank Matt for joining us for this one. Love all of our patrons each and every month who come on the podcast, help support the channel, help make these podcasts as the best, basically, that they can be. So, Matt, a thank you for you, and we love having you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
And yet again, special thanks to Matthew for hopping on this week of the month. I know it's the last one of April, I believe. Nope, not the last one. Next week's the last one. I keep forgetting that next week is not May. Or actually it is. I don't know dates. It is the last week of April. Matthew, though, thank you for having him jump on another great topic from Matthew. But Brandon, we are going into, I feel like it's been a long time since we dove into some actual college football news, college football analysis. And what we're looking at today is basically Jeremy Pruitt, the new head coach at Tennessee. He's filling in for the fired Butch Jones, who's no longer at Tennessee. And basically, Tennessee had their spring game. And although some of the players looked good, some of the players did not. And Coach Pruitt had some interesting things to say after this game that, personally, I love it. Absolutely love it. Here's some of the stuff that he had to say. First off, when talking about the players, he praised some and said that they did their best to compete, but then said that others flat out quit. And then he went on to say, talking about the fans, I don't know how many fans we had. What was it? Anyone know the number? He was then told that the number was 65,000, and he continued to say, to me, it's kind of like our football team for the fans. The ones who were here, I'm proud of who they were. They're fired up. They're ready to get going. Then there were some people who weren't here that had legitimate reasons. They couldn't be here. And then there were people who weren't here. Why weren't they here? He said it's kind of like our football team. I think we all need to take a look in the mirror and see who we want to be. I absolutely love this. And I know we're talking about will he be able to turn this program around? The thing that I love about this is that he's not just calling out the players. Calling out the players is one thing. Of course, you're going to want to come in as a new coach, let a fire under their asses, get them going, make them feel like, you know what, we are not going to be complacent. There are some of you that need to whip it into shape, or you're going to get going, or that's the way I'm thinking about it. But then I like how he also turned it on the fans, where it's kind of like, what's the one thing, no matter the sport, that we bitch about? Fair weather fans. Nobody likes fair weather fans. In Chicago, for baseball, we know it all too well. Think about 2005. I know you were a little younger, Brandon, but I was in high school at the time. And the thing I remember is 2005, the White Sox win the World Series. And how many of my friends, there were a sea of Sox fans that I knew. Not many of us Cub fans were around. Then the Sox started to go on the downcline. Cubs got Theo Epstein, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant. We started building the team. That team starts going on the upcline a little bit. We win the World Series. Now, you walk around Chicago, doesn't matter, north side, south side, east side, west side, no matter where you are, you see Cubs jerseys. More Cubs jerseys than you do Sox jerseys. You can even go to a Sox game nowadays and see more Cubs jerseys than you see Sox jerseys.
That's false.
However, the point I'm getting to is we know fair weather fans. This is what I love with Jeremy Pruitt's comments. He's basically saying, if you love this team, he goes, I know there were people that had legitimate reasons and could not be here. But if you love this team, love us now when we're at our worst. Don't be jumping on the bandwagon when we're going for the SEC title and in the college football playoff. That's basically what I am reading in to Jeremy Pruitt's comments.
Well, Jeremy Pruitt, as we should all know, comes from the best team in college football, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Mm-hmm. So he was with Alabama from 2010 to 2012 and won 2 national championships with them. He was their defensive backs coach. So then he leaves there. He goes to Florida State. He becomes their defensive coordinator. While at Florida State, he turns their defense into something pretty. They were first in the nation in scoring defense with 10.7 points per game. Third in the nation in total defense, 248.2 yards per game allowed. Second in the nation in passing defense. First in the nation in interceptions, 26. And then, in 2014, goes to Georgia. He's their defensive coordinator as well. And then he ends up going back to Alabama, where, yet again, they win a national championship. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Pruitt is a winner. He knows what it's like to win. He's going to expect nothing less. He expects what it's like to be on winning teams. Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, all teams that have been competitive, have been good in their respective divisions and conferences. He's coming into a completely different atmosphere. He's coming into a completely different environment in Tennessee. Into an environment where Tennessee fans are really not happy, or were really not happy. So much to the point where Tennessee said, okay, we've got a guy for you. And they said, okay, we hate him. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll get rid of him. Okay. Pussies.
I completely forgot that happened.
Pussies. But I think that, what really this is and what this does is that guys that want to be on this team and play for this team, like you're talking about there, they will. Guys that don't, they'll be gone, or they will not be seeing the field, because you cannot develop a winning culture. You cannot develop a winning team if you don't have the guys that want to do it. Mm-hmm. And he's going to make that clear from the beginning, which clearly he is. And I think that that's a really good thing. Truly, as much as I thought that the fans who had protested and this and that and the other thing, as much as I thought that was petty as all can be, I think that everything happens for a reason. And Jeremy Pruitt, a very, very, it's like a diamond in the rough here. Because Jeremy Pruitt is certainly dazzling when you look at his resume and what he's done wherever he's gone. I'm not saying he's turning this team around and making them a contender for the SEC title right away.
You got to set the culture, though, first.
You've got to set a culture. And here in Tennessee, it was really toxic. It was real bad. When you got guys who are on the sidelines saying, we're not coming, we're transferring. We're on our phones saying we're transferring from Tennessee. We're done. We're out of here.
I believe at halftime of games.
Yes. Not good. Not good. You have a little ways to go in between that and SEC title. But if anyone's going to do it, I believe Jeremy Pruitt is the guy to be able to, because, again, when you come from a winning culture, you know what it takes. He understands what it takes, and he's going to get guys who want to be part of that.
Well, and one of the things, I got some more quotes for you. And first off, to get your answer, just the yes or no. You like or don't like the comments made by Pruitt?
Love.
Okay. So both you and I are on the same page. We love the comments made from Pruitt. However, there is one guy in the sports media world who does not, who is a very big voice in SEC country. You kind of have a feeling who I'm going to say?
You're going to say Feinbaum.
Feinbaum, or as you like to call him,
Finnebaum.
But what he said today on, it didn't say this today, he said this Monday morning on Wojaks FM, The Roundtable, WJOX FM. This is what he said. I really like what he did, and I think everyone is starting to understand how he won Philip Fulmer, Vols AD, over, and how he won Nick Saban and some of the other people over the past. But what I am concerned about is when you criticize the people who actually showed up at the game. It's not a good look. He then goes on to say, I think they tried too hard in Knoxville to hype this game as something more than it was. I was in Knoxville last year, and I saw this football team. I'm not sure that I blame anyone for not wanting to go see that again. I mean, Jeremy Pruitt has proved something on the field, or has to prove something on the field, and just trying to hype, let's have 60 or 70 or 80,000 at a game or whatever, just wasn't going to do it. I think it was a mistake. I don't think it was a critical mistake because right now the fans are all in, but it's like you're an entertainer. You're the Eagles on a Friday night and you're saying, man, where are the people? Well, you're talking to the people who showed up and bought tickets. It's never a good look when you do that. I look at these comments. I get where he's coming from. Like, there's a part, like how he says in there that, like, where he goes, oh, he won him over, but then he says, oh, he's concerned because he criticized. I didn't see in the comments I read from Pruitt, he's not criticizing the people that were there.
No.
The point that I like from Feinbaum, though, is I get the point of why do I want to go? Well, it's the fan of, like, I'm not going to support you until you put a better product on the field because that's how I'm going to hurt you, is in the money pockets. Like, that's how the fans that don't go think. However, me, because when I am a fan of a team, I'm all in. I'm a fan of that team, whether we go, like for the Vikings, if we went 0-16 or won the Super Bowl, I'm at the same fandom level all the way at the top every single game. Am I depressed if they're 0-16? Probably, but I am still a fan wearing my Vikings gear, cheering that team, screaming at my television set, raising the heart rate a little bit. I don't think he didn't criticize the fans who were there. He also said that, yeah, I realized there are some people that had stuff to do, legitimate reasons, couldn't be here. He was speaking to the fans that were on that side of, yeah, I'm not supporting this team if you're not going to be better. It was basically him saying, don't crucify me for the old regime. I'm here to fix shit. If you're in, you're in. It's kind of like what I hear in videos that I watch from this YouTuber called Steve Dangle. He's a Leafs fan. They're in the playoffs right now. And what he always says is he's like, I got one question for you. Are you in? That's what Pruitt was saying. He's talking to the fans going, this is a new regime. Are you in? Simple yes or no question.
Well, absolutely. But I think that, you also have to look at how things change. Let's take baseball, for example.
Yep.
You are a huge fan of the Chicago Cubs.
Even when they sucked.
You have Joe Madden right now. Mm-hmm. But before, when you had Lou Piniella and you weren't that good, you still wanted to go to games. You still loved the Cubs and you supported the Cubs, even though you moan about them because they stunk. Yeah, that's what we do. But if we're still going and we're, watching them and we're supporting them, and yes, we can say that you're not good, but you can also still continue to be a huge fan and stuff like that. I mean, that's what being a true fan is. If you're going to go and you're going to support them and you're going to be all about them when they're not good, and then when they are good, just be even more excited and elated. That's exactly what Pruitt's saying. That's exactly what he's saying. And I agree 100% with you. I don't think that he said anything wrong in terms of what he said about the fans. Because, yes, has Tennessee football been hard to watch the last couple of years? Yes, it has been. It has been tough. They have not been very competitive. But I don't think that, a true fan, and now we're not talking just a football fan of any conference. This is an SEC football team in SEC country. I mean, we're talking church is going to the game.
Yep,
going to church.
Football.
It's going to the football game on Saturday.
It's almost like Texas with high school football, where when a baby's born, 100%. In Knoxville, they're given a little Tennessee football. Go Vols. That's how it is in Tennessee country, especially Knoxville.
Exactly, and I think that for them to not be. For them to not be supporting, not be showing up, and again, 65,000 is a pretty good number. 60,000 is a pretty good number of people to be there in attendance. But, I think that he's talking, we get down the road here, and we don't have, fan support for what we're trying to do, for us trying to be better and get better, and no, we're not going to be great right away. That's saying something, because those aren't the true fans then. And kind of like you said, if you're not supporting us at what may be our worst, then we don't want you. We don't want you there when, we're at our best, because you just want to ride, the team that's real good, the team that's real hot. You just want to talk about Tennessee when they're good. You don't want to come support them when they're bad. But again, I think that this is a guy who, this will be a really good coach for the players. And this will really get a player's mindset, especially who went through the Butch Jones days, especially towards the end when things were not good, to help get their mindset right and to help get their mindset back focused on football. And it's not going to be focused on who's my next coach going to be, when's this coach going to be gone, okay, things are just toxic in this locker room. No, it's going to be focused on football again. It's going to be focused on how am I getting better in the weight room? How am I getting bigger, faster, stronger? That's where Jeremy Pruitt and his efforts are going to be. And it's not going to be in the next coach. It's not going to be in, all the other outside factors that seem to come with Tennessee football the last couple of seasons.
Well, and the thing that I think back to is about 2 years ago, I want to say. It was the year in football, I think it was 2016, when the Cardinals played the Packers, and the Packers, I think, beat them in overtime. That was the year it was around my birthday, which would have been in January. So that spring semester, Johnny Carlick here at MVP, actually lived down in Tennessee, right by Knoxville, at the end for that whole semester doing an internship. And Dave and I went down to see him. And just being in that area, I heard two things. Either I went to like a Walgreens or something, a convenience store, gave the change, got it back, go Vols. I wasn't even a Vols fan. Still got to go Vols. Or I heard Rocky Top. Either one of those two. Just kind of like how Alabama, it's like, roll Tide. Like that's how it is. And I mean, the thing that I think of is I just look at this Tennessee team and I go, we're only at the beginning. Let's see what Pruitt does. With me, I love these comments. I have no bad things to say about them, because you want to, I know it's cliche to say it, but you want to instill a culture. Right now, you got a team where, both quarterbacks, or all the quarterbacks in the spring game, I want to say, played well, but you got to make a decision there. You got to find out who's going to take over for the quarterback who just left. You also have a running back in John Kelly, who's no longer with Tennessee as well. So this is going to be something that's not going to be, we're turning over in one day, one night, and we're going to get this going. The interesting thing is with this is the SEC East is in an interesting situation because you've got Georgia at the top, but then right under them, you got Tennessee and Florida, both with brand new coaches. Florida with Dan Mullen. Florida might be in a better situation this year just because they didn't have to deal with the kind of drama that Tennessee had to deal with. But I look at this and I think that Jeremy Pruitt, he will make Tennessee a winner. I don't think this is going to be a 1-2 year thing and then, we got to kick him out the door because we're not winning games. I think that Jeremy Pruitt's going to be the one to turn them into a winner because it's like, I know it's not the exact situation. Look at Kirby Smart. Goes into Georgia. I know it wasn't as toxic a situation as Tennessee is, but he was able to turn Georgia into a winner. Yeah, you're probably not going to make it to the national championship as early as Georgia did, but give it a few years, maybe 3 at the least, and you will be fighting for college football playoff appearances, I promise you.
And you talk about Kelly having to be, replaced there at the running back position. Defensively, there needs to be a lot of work done. But I also believe that Jeremy Pruitt's the right guy to be able to do that.
I mean, look at the Alabama defense.
Look at the Alabama defense. Look at what he did with the defense when he was there at Florida State. Look at what he did when he was with Georgia. There were just a lot of good things. Wherever he's gone, he's been successful. And
he's a defensive-minded guy.
He is, and that's not just him. I know it's not just him. It's the other coaches, and it's the head coach, and it's also the type of system and the guys they have for that. But he's a big part of it. Tennessee had 5 interceptions last year. Wrap your head around that. They
on defense, not on offense.
On defense.
Because on offense, it's phenomenal.
On
Only 5.
defense, they had 5 interceptions. That's it. Unless this is wrong, unless sportsreference.com is inaccurate, which they're not.
Don't think they are wrong.
You have 5 picks all season. Total. That's bad.
It's very bad.
That's bad. I mean, and I know that's one thing, but that's not good. That is not good. And you have a long ways to go in terms of that. But I think they're better suited defensively with a guy like Pruitt. That's his specialty. That's his forte. He's probably like, give it to me. Come on, give it to me. I'll change it.
Another thing with Pruitt, let's see what he does in the recruiting game this season and next year because he came in so late because of what happened where, hey, we're going to bring in this guy. No, we're not. You don't like him. No, we didn't hire him.
I'm sorry.
We didn't have a press conference.
I didn't mean to.
Who are you talking about? Ricky even forgot about him. That's how long ago it's been. But he came in so late, he didn't really get a chance to put his fingerprints and get in the mud, let's say, with molding a recruiting class. This will be his first one. So let's even see what he does with that. I love the comments for Jeremy Pruitt. I love what he's doing so far. I think he will be able to turn around Tennessee football. Before we kind of end the podcast, what are your final thoughts with Jeremy Pruitt, Tennessee, and will he be able to turn this Vols team around?
My final thoughts is, like I mentioned earlier, I already like him. He's an Alabama guy.
Yeah, because you're an Alabama fan. Roll Tide.
He is he's a very, very good defensive-minded coach. And again, it's always helpful when the guy that you're getting is coming from winning teams. And he's had a winning record. Wherever he's gone, he's had a winning track record. He's made whatever team he's with better. Whatever position he's coaching, better. That's what Tennessee needs right now. Jeremy Pruitt, he's your guy.
So I know this has nothing to do with what we talked about today, but I've got to say it because if you've listened to the Onside Kick in full format on podcast services, this segment's not going to post until Thursday on YouTube. But you want to know something funny? Sean and I did a sleeper segment, right? Like sleepers outside the first round. One guy I had mentioned was Antonio Callaway from Florida. Did you just hear what popped up on ESPN?
No.
At the combine, he tested positive for, I know some people are going to say, woo, big deal, but guess what? Guys have fallen for this in the past. tested positive for marijuana. Teams are not going to like that. No longer the sleeper that I thought he is, or is he a bigger sleeper because this will make him fall in the draft?
No, the whole thing with Callaway is he had a really horrid last season at Florida, all because of off the field stuff with drugs and things like that, and him having that again.
The sexual assault thing with the female student.
Yeah, was that him?
Yeah, 2015, December of 2015, he was accused of that.
That ain't good either.
No,
but I again, it's one of those things where, you know, if he continues to do that and have that in his system, he's not stopping. He's not stopping. He's continuing to use it. And I mean,
Josh Gordon
again,
I
was just gonna say Josh Gordon is a prime example of a guy who's uber talented, but for a long time could not, you know, put down the bottle and stop smoking weed and doing drugs. And he's now gotten clean. And this is a guy who's coming back to the league, and I think you can tell he is still extremely uber talented. And Antonio Callaway, you hate to see good talent thrown away like that because of things like that where you could seek help and be able to get that taken care of and be able to reach your full potential. And that's what these guys should be able to do. And I'll be praying for that guy.
Here's my issue with it is I don't have a problem that he tested positive for it. My issue is you're going to the combine. You know they're going to test you. Why are you like, if let's say I did it, which I don't, but if I did, why would I, if you were saying, hey, Ricky, you're getting tested in 3 weeks, I wouldn't continue to do it. I'd stop right away, make sure it was out of my system. I passed the test. All right, now I go to it. Like, that's what it shows to me. You're that stupid to fail the test when you know the test is coming. Like, what'd you think? Oh, they're not going to test me at the combine. That's what irks me about it. And I know teams aren't going to think that way, but that's what I feel. Like, really?
No, but
you knew it was coming.
No, I
Why
don't necessarily think that's right. I think the teams would look at that and go, this isn't the first time that you've done it.
No, they're going to look at he did it, period, not the way I'm looking at it.
Here's your history of all the stuff you've done. This looks like it's going to be a continuous thing. We don't necessarily know if we can have that around our team.
And that's what I mean. Like, teams are going to look at it that he did it, period.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it to where it's like, you knew the test was coming and you continued to do it. Like, how stupid are you?
Yeah.
But this is where you guys come in. Camera shuts off again for another segment because we're going too long. This is where we wrap things up. Little housekeeping here at the end. Number one, if you want to be like Matt, help support the channel and come on a podcast in the future, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. MVP store is down below in the description. Go ahead and get yourself a Most Valuable Podcast t-shirt. My full 7-round mock draft is on mostvaluablepodcast.com. That's where you can also catch everything for MVP each and every day. And last but not least, if you're on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, I'm still putting the 5 up at the camera. They can't see me, but I'm still doing it. Go and give the Primetime Podcast a 5-star rating. Want to thank you guys for watching. Want to thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.